Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk about ethmoid bone. Here you can see the diagrammatic representation of ethmoid bone. We will start our topic with introduction. Ethmoid bone is one of the most delicate and complex bone of human skull. It is located between the nasal cavity and the orbits. It plays a crucial role in supporting the structures of face, separating the brain and forming the nasal passages, and contributing to the sense of smell. Due to its intricate anatomy, the ethmoid bone is vital in various physiological functions and medical studies. Now let's talk about the location of the ethmoid bone. Ethmoid bone is single, unpaired bone positioned in the middle line of the skull. It forms part of the anterior cranial base and contributes to the nasal cavity and orbital walls. Ethmoid bone is situated between the frontal bone superiorly and the sphenoid bone posteriorly. Now let's talk about the structures of ethmoid bone. It consists of several key sections that are cribriform plate. That is the horizontal part that forms the roof of the nasal cavity and allows the passage of olfactory nerve. The other part of ethmoid bone is perpendicular plate. As you can see in the diagram, the cribriform plate and the perpendicular plate. The vertical portion that contributes to the formation of nasal septum, separating the left and right nasal passages. The next part is the ethmoid labyrinth. There are two lateral masses that contain the ethmoid ear cells or ethmoid ear sinuses, which are part of paranasal sinuses. The next part of the ethmoid bone includes crista galli, that is a ridge-like structure in the cranial cavity serving as attachment site for the dura mater. Each of these sections play a distinct role in shaping the skull and supporting crucial sensory functions. Now let's talk about anatomical features of ethmoid bone. The ethmoid bone consists of several vital landmarks that contribute to structural and functional importance. The first includes cerebriform plate, that is a perforated bony surface allowing the passage of the olfactory nerve from the nasal cavity to the brain and thus facilitate the sense of smell. The next anatomical features include crista galli, that is a sharp upward projection that anchors the dura mater, thus securing the brain within the skull. The next anatomical features include perpendicular plate, that is a thin vertical structure that forms the upper portion of the nasal septum, ensuring proper airflow and separation of nasal passages. The next anatomical feature is superior and middle nasal conchae, that are curved bony projections within the lateral masses of the ethmoid bone, aiding in air filtration, humidification, and turbulence within the nasal cavity. The next anatomical features of ethmoid bone include ethmoidal air cells, that are small interconnected cavities within the lateral masses that contribute to the paranasal sinuses, assisting in respiratory function. The next anatomical feature include orbital plates, that are the thin structure forming part of the medial wall of the orbit, contributing to the eye protection. And these features make the ethmoid bone essential in neurological, respiratory, and sensory function. Now let's talk about the functions of ethmoid bone. Ethmoid bone plays several cubical crucial roles within the skull that include structural support for skull and face, as it contributes to the nasal cavity, orbits, and cranial base, ensuring stability. So that's how it provides structural support for skull and face. The second function of it is facilitation of olfaction, as cribriform plate allow olfactory nerves to transmit sensory information, enabling the sense of smell. The third function of the ethmoid bone is contributing to nasal airflow, as the nasal conchae ensure proper air circulation, humidification, and filtration, aiding respiratory health. The next function of ethmoid bone is protection of the brain, as the crista galli secures the dura mater, stabilizing the brain within the cranial cavity. The next function of the ethmoid bone is integration with the paranasal sinuses, as the ethmoidal air cells reduce skull weight and assist in voice resonance. Each function highlights the ethmoid bone's significance in maintaining neurological, respiratory, and sensory health. Now let's talk about the clinical significance of ethmoid bone. Ethmoid bone is associated with several medical conditions and anatomical concepts. These include ethmoid bone fractures, as head trauma can lead to fracture that compromise olfactory function and brain protection. The second significance is in sinus infection, that is also called ethmoidal sinusitis, because it is an infection of ethmoidal air sinuses. That is inflammation of ethmoidal air cells and can result in nasal congestion, headache, and nasal sinus pressure. The next significance of ethmoid bone is cerebrospinal fluid leakage, as damage to cerebriform plate can cause CSF leakage, leading to complications such as infection. The next significance include deviated nasal symptoms, as abnormalities in perpendicular plate can result in breathing difficulties and require medical intervention. The next significance includes surgical consideration, as the ethmoid bone is a key reference point in neurosurgical and otolaryngal procedures. Now let's talk about the conclusion of our lecture. Ethmoid bone is uniquely structural component of the skull, contributing to the olfactory function, nasal airflow, cranial production, and fragile and facial integrity. Its complex anatomy makes it vital in medical studies, particularly in fields related to neurology, otolaryngology, and sinus health. Understanding its features and significance help in diagnosing and treating related medical conditions. So this was all about ethmoid bone. Hopefully you liked the video. If you do, don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment. Thank you for watching.